Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield as much time as he may consume to my distinguished colleague from the state of Idaho, Mr. Sali.
The gentleman from Idaho is recognized for as much time as he might consume.
I thank the gentlewoman, Mr. Speaker, and today I rise in support of H-Con Res 138, supporting National Men's Health Week. Not only should we be recognizing this important health issue this week, but Congress should also be addressing other issues critical to the American people, especially rising fuel prices. As Americans across this country pay an average of $3.98 per gallon, these prices hit families and particularly school children. Just yesterday, the Calhoun Times reported in Georgia that, and I quote, "High gas prices hit high school sports. With gas prices soaring to record heights, the cost of taking teams on the road has become a looming storm on the horizon of high school athletics that has led some to worry about what the future may have in store." All across the country, people are dealing with the pinch of high gas prices, with high school teams' main mode of transportation still the average school bus, which runs on diesel, and costs are even higher. This is unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. We need to act now to lower gas prices. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would yield back.
The gentleman from Idaho yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Sali, is recognized for as much time as he might consume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentlewoman. I rise in support of H-Res 1114, supporting the goals and ideals of the Arbor Day Foundation and National Arbor Day. I wholeheartedly support the planning as well as the management of healthy trees and forests. The Forest Service has estimated that a healthy and well-managed forest could sequester much more of our national carbon emissions than our forests currently sequester, sequestering an estimated 10% of our national carbon emissions. While I rise in support of this resolution, I also rise to urge my colleagues to address other issues facing our nation, especially rising fuel prices. Increasing the supply of crude oil and ultimately its price is the single most effective thing Congress can do to lower gas prices. Today, 73% of every dollar we pay for gasoline is the price of producing crude oil. And yet, according to a study just released by the Bureau of Land Management, while onshore public lands in the United States are estimated to contain 31 billion barrels of oil and 231 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, some 60% of these lands are completely closed to leasing. Congress must act to lift the restrictions on America's energy-rich public lands and increase exploration for and production of American crude oil and natural gas, and do so in an environmentally friendly manner. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman from Idaho yields back the balance of his time. North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield as much time as he may consume to my distinguished colleague from the state of Idaho, Mr. Sali.
The gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Sali, is recognized for as much time as he might consume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentlewoman. I rise in support of this bill to designate this Portland Post Office in the name of and memory of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. While I support this designation, I note with some disappointment that we are not also addressing rising fuel prices in this week's schedule. Dr. King spoke passionately about our nation's moral obligation to make sure that the needs of the poor and the elderly are met. America's senior citizens and low-income households have been disproportionately affected by higher energy costs. In 2006, before the skyrocketing and record-breaking fuel price increases we are seeing today, low-income households in America spent nearly 20% of their income on energy-related expenditures. This is a moral issue, an issue which, for many low-income families, senior citizens, and hardworking families, affects their access to education and even to their doctors. It's time for Congress to act on that moral obligation to take care of the poor and the elderly and lift the restrictions on America's energy-rich public lands to increase exploration for and production of American crude oil and natural gas, and do so in an environmentally friendly manner. With that, I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Idaho yields back the balance of his
To my distinguished colleague from the state of Idaho, Mr. Sali.
The gentleman from Idaho is recognized for as much time as he might consume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentlewoman. I rise in support of H.R. 1734, designating this post office in the name of Chimwe. While I rise in support of this resolution, I again rise to urge my colleagues to address rising fuel prices. Chief Mui's efforts to improve his community are akin to the efforts of America's charitable organizations that seek to meet the needs of Americans all across our land. Today, as Americans across this country pay $3.98 per gallon at the pump, these prices hit nearly every facet of life, including those charities providing care for many Americans in need. One Tennessee paper reported today on the effects these prices are having on charities, and I quote, "Nonprofit agencies and charities that rely on volunteer drivers to help carry out their work say soaring gas prices are forcing volunteers to scale back or even stop driving. This means there are fewer people to drive cancer patients to treatment and fewer people to deliver food to the needy." Congress has a moral obligation to address rising fuel prices by immediately lifting the restrictions on America's energy-rich public lands to increase exploration for and production of American crude oil and natural gas, and to do so in an environmentally friendly manner. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield back.